First, on behalf of the Russell family, we want to thank everyone for coming down here today. We'd also like to thank Prosecutor McGinty, Ms. Royster, and the entire prosecution team at Cuyahoga County who tried to bring some justice out of this tragedy. We appreciate all the time and all the effort and all the man hours, the work that went into this. And of course, we also want to thank all the people in the community who have been working towards justice, who have been keeping this case in the forefront, and who have been keeping us and the Russell family, of course, in their thoughts and prayers, as well as the Williams family. Today, Judge O'Donnell ruled that Officer Brelo is not guilty of voluntary manslaughter, and he is also not guilty of the lesser-included offense of felonious assault. And so while we are respectful of this process, and we are thankful that an attempt was made to bring Officer Brelo to justice, on behalf of the Russell family, we are hugely disappointed in this verdict. Regarding the charges of voluntary manslaughter, reading or listening to Judge O'Donnell's opinion, it seems that there was difficulty proving which bullets killed Tim and Melissa, and furthermore, whether Officer Brelo fired the bullets that ultimately killed Tim and Melissa. That leads us all to kind of question, well, so why is Officer Brelo the only officer who's being charged in this instance? How were we ever going to get justice, even from the beginning, if we weren't going to be able to prove that Officer Brelo fired the shots that killed Tim and Melissa? I mean, there is no question. Tim and Melissa were killed by Cleveland police officers. They fired 137 shots, and with each one of those shots that was fired, there was an intent to kill. Police officers are not trained to hit, to wound people. They are not trained to shoot warning shots, and none of that was part of the evidence in this case. 13 officers fired 137 shots with the intent to kill, but only one was brought up on charges. And so now the fact that we can't prove which bullets from Brelo or whether Brelo's bullets killed Tim and Melissa has served to, in a sense, insulate him from criminal liability. Officer Brelo was also found not guilty of the lesser-included offense of felonious assault. And I think that Judge O'Donnell did a thorough job evaluating the Fourth Amendment. We appreciate the Fourth Amendment and its contours very much so. But if I understand the judge's reasonings, Officer Brelo was found not guilty of felonious assault because Officer Brelo's conduct was objectively reasonable under the circumstances. Some of those circumstances included the fact that it was dark, that it was a firefight, I believe was Judge O'Donnell's terms, that there was chaos. There were reports, although they were wrong, that Tim and Melissa had a gun. Basically, all you really have that Tim and Melissa did is they didn't pull over as early as everybody would have liked them to have pulled over. That's their role in this, the chaos and in the firefight, because they didn't have a gun. So again, Officer Brelo he has been found not guilty because of the objectively reasonable circumstances, but those are circumstances that were created by the Cleveland police. Yes. 62 cars with lights and sirens blaring, right? 62 cars chasing two unarmed people. You corner them in a parking lot. You start shooting at each other. Now someone hears shots fired. It's dark. No one knows what's going on. These are the circumstances that the court found Officer Brelo was objectively reasonable in using force under those circumstances. But in some respects, it's disappointing. And on some level, it ignores the fact that it was the Cleveland police officers who built this house. They're the ones who created this situation, not Tim and Melissa. It is shallow and unfair to say, well, they should have pulled over sooner. Because what we have been saying from the very beginning is, fleeing and eluding doesn't get you the death penalty. And it shouldn't have gotten them the death penalty in this case. There are stop sticks, there are road spikes, there are other things that the Cleveland police have been trained to do to stop people who flee. And it doesn't include surrounding them with 62 cars and having 13 people shoot at them. Part of also what our thoughts are is that while Judge O'Donnell ruled that Officer Brelo was not guilty, that is far from innocent. Not guilty is not the same as innocent. Jumping up on the hood of a car and firing 49 bullets down into two unarmed people can hardly be said to be innocent. And while the law and the court, and we respect the decision, found him not guilty, we want it to be known that obviously we feel that he's culpable and that he is far from innocent, as was the city of Cleveland in their role in this situation. We will never have a successful Cleveland Police Department until we have a candid and meaningful discussion about the culture within the department and a discussion about prejudice, mass incarceration, personal responsibility, and individual rights. Instead of mutual resentment in the community and with the police, we need to have mutual respect. The Cleveland Police Department must be operated with more discipline and have respect for all of the citizens of the city of Cleveland, regardless of their skin color and regardless of their socioeconomic status. Professionalism with the department must take place of what at times, sometimes more closely resembles a college fraternity with guns and badges. The last thing that I want to say on behalf of the Russell family is that there's been a lot of focus of late on the Brelo trial, and there's been a lot of focus on whether or not there's going to be looting and rioting and so forth and so on. And I know that Tim and Melissa were peaceful people, and they would never want there to be violence. They would never want there to be any rioting. They condemn any such actions. And quite frankly, I think it's worth noting that there are people out there who want there to be riots. If you watch some news coverage and you listen to some blogs and you see what people have been putting on their Facebook, it isn't the black community that is looking for riots. From my perspective, it is other people in the state and elsewhere who seems like they want there to be riots. There's not going to be. We firmly believe that, and we pray that that doesn't happen. People want to protest, they want to march, they want to continue to seek justice, then God be with them. But there's no notion that there will or should be any violence stemming from this verdict. This is Michelle Russell, Tim's sister. This is Jackie Russell, Tim's sister-in-law.
Michelle, what's your reaction to this?
To be quite frank and honest, I'm not surprised. I did not believe that Brelo was going to be indicted for manslaughter, but I did expect that he would be held accountable to some level because, as Paul said, getting up on top of that car and shooting those 49 bullets into 2 people is just not right. It's something totally wrong about that. And there was testimony from other officers that indicated that they felt that it was wrong. So I thought that the judge would hone into some of those testimonies and different things that came out in the case and make a fair ruling. I think that he may have ignored a lot of information when he made his decision, because when he talked about Brelo in the courtroom today, to me, it sounded as if he was making him out to be a hero, which that bothered me. I don't feel that he was a hero. I feel that he was wrong in his actions, and as I've stated many times before with other, media outlets, I've said that we're only looking at one side of this story, and that's the police version of the event. I do not believe that Tim and Melissa ever used their car as a weapon. I do not believe that they ever had a gun. It's outside of my brother's character to be a violent person. So all of that the police has drummed up, this story about the gun, about the using the car as a weapon, that is not true. I know that 100% is not true. And for the judge and for the court and the police to keep relying strictly on the story from the officers is not fair. It's not fair to my family. It's not fair to Tim and Melissa, because there's another side to this story which never came out. We're only looking at what the officers have said, and it's never dawned on anybody in the courtroom or the judge that maybe these officers aren't being honest. Maybe they're not being forthcoming. Maybe their story is not true. And that really hurts me, because when he got up there, it made it sound like Officer Brelo did everything that he was supposed to do, and he did it right. But I know that he couldn't have. He didn't. I feel like they were chasing after Tim and Melissa that night. They were angry. You can't tell me that those officers were not angry at the fact that Tim and Melissa did not pull over. Now, whatever reason they didn't pull over, we don't know. But what I can say is that they did not deserve to die for fleeing and eluding. That's not a death sentence. So we don't know why they didn't pull over, but I can tell you what I do know. I know that those officers were upset. Adrenaline was flowing. By the time they caught up to Tim and Melissa in that parking lot, they simply let them have it. And that's why you see 65 cars chasing after two people, one car. You got 65 officers involved. That makes no sense. The reason being is because they had mob mentality. They were after them with a vengeance. And once they caught up to them, you heard an officer make a comment, it's cowboy and Indians now. Why would you say that if you don't have malice or intent in your heart to do harm? They knew that night that once they caught up to Tim and Melissa that they were going to let them have it, and that's exactly what happened. There was no pause or warning, put your hands up, get out the car, get on the ground. They didn't offer any of that. They simply got out and started shooting. That's what happened.
Michelle, while the mics are pointing in your direction, what message, though, would you like to send to the people of Cleveland who, at this point, might want to show their upset with the verdict?
Before I go into that, I did want to say also that I think that people, before they make judgments and say, well, oh, these people did this, they did that, they probably got what they deserve, read the information. Comb through the investigative work. Look at the depositions. Look at everything, because most people are going off of hearsay. But when you look into the facts of this case and you read all the evidence and the information, you can't come up with the conclusion that those officers were right that night. You would come up with the conclusion that something went wrong and they're covering up something. And they know as officers that they can say, oh, we felt our lives were in danger. Oh, we thought they were going to shoot us. So that's why we were justified in using deadly force. We have to look at that, and we have to consider that. People have to take that into consideration. Back to your question about rioting or, something going wrong within the community, looting, I'm not for any of that. I mean, my background is I have a BA degree, an undergraduate degree in conflict management, applied conflict management. I am for peace, and I don't want people to be getting involved in burning down buildings or rioting or hurting anybody. I think that as a people, we have to come together and use wisdom and knowledge. We have to organize and try to figure out a way to stop this from happening ever again, or try to figure out a way to communicate and talk about these issues that everybody wants to keep quiet about, and that's race relations, intentions, prejudice, bias. We have to talk about this stuff, because I think a lot of this is stemming from all of that. And as a people, we need to come together, figure out what our next step is going to be, because I don't feel anybody, especially advocates of this situation, people that have been advocating for this for years, is ready to give up. And they're not going to give up. We're going to keep trying to fight and figure out what we need to do to get some kind of justice.
Michelle.